So, prerequisites. What do I actually need to set up an AI server? And when I speak of AI server, I always mean, of course, a server for both Spark and x86 client, because any AI server that runs can provision both clients. You just have to add the respective services, which we will also see in a moment. So we have a chicken and egg problem. If there is no Caiman CD for Spark, and I want to run an install server on Spark, how do I get my Open Solaris running on Spark? So this is what the gentleman in the indignant email on the mailing list really complained about. You need a PC, an x86 system, to install a Spark system. So there's a little chicken and egg problem. The good news is that you can, once you've installed your first Spark Open Solaris system using AI, you can throw away the PC or reinstall Windows or whatever you want with it. So you need to have control over DHCP. That is not so easy as it sounds, because in many big environments, if you come from a big environment or have customers who do, then you know what I'm talking about. Many big environments, DHCP is holy because it's managed by the network people. And of course, the server people and the Windows people are naturally enemies of the network people because they use the precious network. And as we all know, a good network is a network with no traffic on it. So that's really a big problem. And as long as installation is restricted to some subnet that you have control over, it's not so bad. But if you have to talk to other people who manage DHCP, then it can run into bureaucratic nightmares. And well, that's a prerequisite. You need to have something to influence DHCP and to insert in DHCP entries. For Spark, you need to have WAN boot capable clients. I'm not going to go into WAN boot, except that it's a method of installing and booting a system. You don't have to install, actually, you can just boot. To boot a system across a network, WAN wide area network boot, by using HTTP. And this is built into the firmware in your machine. Unfortunately, it is only in the very recent ones. So the desktop machines, I think they start with a Blade 100. And the server machines, they start with OpenBoot 4. Something, depending on the actual model that you have. Every model has a different OpenBoot firmware version. All the other machines do not support this. Yeah, Rainer.
In fact, you can get around that requirement by DHCP booting the WAN boot binary on any machine which supports Spark machine which supports DHCP, and then get on from that point.
Exactly. I was going to just say that you can, that there's a way around it, but I wasn't going to go into details. So yes, thank you. You're correct. And of course, you need to have a good bandwidth to an IPS repository or a local mirror. Why is this important? This is even more important because all the package data are copied in from the repository. That means there is no interaction between the boot image and the actual packages that are added onto your target system. So if you want to install lots of machines, or you have a slow outside connection, or both, or you want to reproduce this, many people need to archive their install server, or at least inventory their install server and put the inventory in some kind of storage so that internal audit people can come back and say, when evil trader X made that money-losing deal, what was the status of the server that had the database? And then you can reproduce it. And it's better if you have the installation locally. That's one of the drawbacks of a repository-based installation method. So this is important to remember. This is a difference between Caiman and AI. Let's have a look at the server. What do we need to set up an AI server? Well, of course, we need the software. We need some sort of install image. We need DHCP info. We actually need to know what the client should have for an IP address, where the default gateway is, et cetera, et cetera. We need to enable TFTP servers. We should install a service that provides installation services to the clients. We should have a menu.lst file, which is basically what Grub needs to find the kernel that it should boot, et cetera, et cetera. We should have a good web server configuration because the installation services for AI is provided through a web server, and we should have a static address on the AI server. That means the first thing you have to do, and you have to do this manually, is to go onto your AI server and tell it, okay, you are no longer a DHCP client, you are now a static IP host on the network. If you forget that, it doesn't work. Fortunately, most of this list is being done automatically once we set up the AI server, and we're going to look at how to do this. This is basically just a list of components, what we have to think about. So now you can appreciate why I like large type. But if you only can read the first line, it's all you need to memorize. Just be sure to use the most recent stuff that you can get. As you can see, I've tried an image update for the installation server, and it tells me, I can't do that because the packaging software itself is not up to date. So I update the packaging server, the packaging software, and I go back to an image update, and it runs through, and after a couple of cups of coffee, I'm set. Then it's important to use the development repository. AI does not currently work with the release repository. Use the dev repository. Then you need the automated installer tools themselves. They are inside, what a surprise, an IPS package. Just install that IPS package. I've just outlined the steps, which are not too many, and then you can see that the stuff is installed. All the examples are being done on build 124, but it's basically been the same for the last couple of builds. The devil is in the details, and in the internals, the visible user interface has not really changed a lot lately, so that's okay. But remember, it's a moving target. So let's create AI images. We have AI images already because Sun is so nice and provides them. They're ISO images, and you don't need to unpack them. They're just there. If you are an old-time hacker like me, and you were supposed to support installations, automated installations using Jumpstart, custom Jumpstart, you know how it is. You need to find the mini root, you need to tweak the mini root, you do evil things to the mini root. And then when you jumpstart a server, stuff will be copied from the mini root and off of template directories into some temp root, which is then relinked, etc., etc., etc. All of this is no longer necessary. The AI will just use the ISO file directly, and you just put them there. What it actually does is, of course, it itself loopback mounts it, and then does basically what you would do by typing manually, but that's okay. So I hope everyone can read this. If not, I will be happy to tell you where you find the presentation later. This is really very interesting here. I can put the stuff wherever I want. I don't have to NFS share anything. I don't have to export anything. In this example, I just create some ZFS file system, and I create two subdirectories, one for image, one for the server, and then I just copy the ISO images into the IMG directory that I've just created. Now this line is more interesting here. This is where I actually create the service. I call install ADM. This is the sort of control command for the AI. And I tell it to create a service. I give it the name of the service. Sun in its documentation uses 10.02, this being the next version, February 2010 of open source, and then an architecture abbreviation, Spark, but you could basically call it my first service or our little farm or whatever you like. And then you have to tell it where the image is, then you have to give it the base directory for the service, which as you might be able to see, is in this service directory there. So, and then it will churn on, and then it will see that DHCP is not activated on my AI server, and it will helpfully tell me what I have to do to change this. So it'll actually type out the directions I need to, the command I need to type in if I'm using the Sun DHCP server, which I am, because it's actually not so bad. It works, and I see it can do much more, but it's a different thing. So it's possible to run AI using IC server, but I haven't done it. So we're in business. We have an AI server. And I've skipped the x86 step because it's basically just the same. It's a different name, and DHCP macro is different, etc. But as you can see, we have two important directories, etc netboot, which is the Spark side for WAN, wide area network boot. And we have TFTP boot, which many people might know. In the netboot directory, there's subdirectories for the network and for the service name that I've just created, and there's a wanboot.conf file, which contains configuration. I'm not going to, for time reasons, I'm not going to go into detail with that, but if you're interested, just have a look on your local friendly Spark system or Solaris system and do man, and you will find that there is some interesting information there. So now we have a service running. Of course, the install server itself is also an SMF service, and it's running on my system, and it's waiting for jobs to do. What I've written down here, because it occurred to me that I didn't show it, there is an Apache web server also started, which is listening on a special port. So let's look at an AI example. Another confession to make. I've promised in my paper that I put in the proceedings that I would give 2 examples. One, which I'm going to give now, and then the second one, installing a guest domain under a Zen system running on open source. Sorry, for time reasons I kicked this out. Also, I didn't get it finished in a presentable way, so we'll just get one example. So here is the example. The task is to install a Spark system off of an x86 install server. And I would like to do some extra things. I would like to add another package so I don't have to go in and do the clickety-click thing. Not that I don't like the package manager. It's very nice. But it's better to have the package there right away. And to change some basic settings, because that's all you can do now. Like I said, it's a work in progress. It's 4 times now. And I'm sure there's going to be more features and more tweakable stuff, but at this time, there's not so much there. And this is very important. I want to monitor the installation from the console. And if you've done automated or custom jump-start installation for Solaris 10 and earlier, you know it can be very difficult to see what's going on, especially if you install packages that you've written yourself, or you've changed the finish script or whatever. Then you have to do echoes and stuff, or you have to tweak screen into the mini root, so you have one TTY with the installation and the other TTY that you can do things. This is one of the great good things that AI gives you. You can actually use the machine while the installation is running, and I find this very, very good. So, how to create a client? Install ADM again, our friend. But this time it's create client. You don't have to know many things. You just type the MAC address of the machine. Yes, that's my real MAC address, but I use trusty IPF, so you can't get at it. And you have to tell it where the server has where the service is on the machine in the AI serve that I created there, and you have to give the service name. And again, it will tell me, oh my God, you don't have DHCP enabled, so please do all this. But now it will give me another macro name, which is derived from the MAC address, which is just a standard format for doing this. This is just a standard DHCP format. So, and it tells me assign a client address. So run PNT ADM, which is basically what you have to do for some DHCP server. The one single most important feature of AI is that you have one manifest to describe an installation service. The manifest is basically, it's not really one file, but in the end it ends up as one file on the AI server, so that's why I presented in one thing. The install ADM, I've just put the usage, an excerpt of the usage there. You can see that we have a list that lists us all the services, and we have add and remove manifest. And now we're going to look at a manifest here. We can see that there's some defined names. I'm sure you all know XML. The good thing about XML is that you can read it even if you don't really know what the actual elements mean. You can see that there's things defined like the default repository. You can see that you can actually specify a mirror. We can see that you have to, or this is a comment so you don't have to have it, but you can actually install build B running an AI server under build A. So you're not actually forced to install the same build that you run your AI server on, but you can actually just select something else. So let's go on in the manifest. I hope people can read this. If not, I know a good optician. So here in red I have marked a package that I've put in. This is one very essential package that no machine should be without. What can you do on a machine with no shell? So put on TC shell. And you can see it's just easy as that. You just put in an identifier that will be resolved against the repository that you are installing from. You just have to make sure it exists. That's it. All the rest I'm going let's have a look at first at some other things. Okay, so you can see some very mysterious passage there. First I install some you can see that there's Babel install and Slim install up up there, and then I uninstall them again. What's going on here? Come on, son. Why are you confusing me? I'm confused already. So what really happens here is that this is IPS interna. Label install and slim install are called incorporations, and you have to first specify them so that all the dependencies are pulled in. And when you then uninstall them, you can start working with the packages inside these incorporations one by one, so that you can then add and subtract stuff that you want or you don't want. And this is something I hope will go away, because it's really counterintuitive. But this whole incorporation thing, I don't want to go into this here, but just leave it the way it is. It's supposed to be there. It's really correct. Yes, you want to install them, and you really want to uninstall them immediately afterwards. So just take it as it comes and be happy. So here's what I can also set. I can set the auto reboot if I want to reboot the machine automatically or not, which is not such a big deal. And you can see that there is actually another XML file just included in here, and the header is commented out. This is actually what's called a service bundle, and it's actually a service profile that sets certain configuration parameters for the client when it boots. Yes, the installation procedure on the client is also an SMF service, and this is the parameterization for the SMF service. And here you can see we can put some interesting parameters in there. We can, for example, specify the default user and its name and its password, and we can specify the root password. So that means if I use AI, I am not limited to this nice guy Jax, but I can put in any user I want, and I can give it a different password so that people cannot log onto my machine while it's running.
Does it work with new style passwords? You know the long.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Actually, if you look at your default, you will see that the root password, which I have abbreviated here, is in the long format. Sorry?
Because with sysid config it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. No, no. The magical 13 characters, I think it is, and that's it in sysad. Yeah. It's actually the character set as well. Yes. Yes. The answer is yes. It does work.
I have a question. Who decided to remove those incorporations? Because in my opinion, at some point it might break the whole dependencies field in your AI.
I bow to your experience. I don't know. This is the default that I find on my system. I've tried to figure this out, and all the explanation I could find was that this is an incorporation, and you need to put it in and remove it again so that it'll do the right thing. So
there is one more entire incorporation, and when
the entire stays there. Yes.
Yeah. So
it's not removed. So yes. So I can only give you a half answer there.
So this is the default what you are finding on the open source.
This is the default in 10.02.
Okay.
Or in build 124, which is 10.02 preview. So another confession. I was going to do a live demo, but wisely, I think, looking at the watch, I decided not to. But let's just have a quick look at what's actually going on there. So this is a look at my DHCP macros. I've been using some other DHCP stuff, which you can ignore. I just highlighted the blue stuff. This is basically what the command told me to add to my DHCP server before when I set up the server. And now we can see that the machine is being booted here. It's B240, and it's booting off of DHCP. And we can see that it's doing some WAN boot stuff because it gets info, and then it'll print out the banner line. Yes, this is actually what we want to install. We can see that one of the disks does not have a good disk label on it, but it doesn't really matter, as we can see later. And let's see, where can I find this? Okay. Just to scroll this up. It doesn't really scroll the way I want it to be. Anyway, so we can see what's happening here. There's HTTP retrievals off of our install server, off of this port, and it's downloading stuff into /tmp. This is basically why we have a rather big size requirement. You need to have at least 512 megabytes of RAM isn't really enough. Sun says it's minimum, but nah, 768 is better. That's in part because this stuff is being downloaded into memory as it's being unpacked and mounted later. So, and then it just goes on. You can see that there's some SMF method complaining, but we don't really care. And I'll try to scroll this up a little more here. I don't know why it doesn't really scroll the way I want. So, service discovery phase initiated. Yes, service discovery. For time reasons, I'm not going to go into this, but it's actually multicast DNS. Yes, AI needs multicast DNS. The client asks for the installation service by doing multicasts. And many network people, there we have them again, our friends the network people, don't like this, especially if it goes across subnets. Some people just disable multicasts on their routers, period. So if you have network problems, this is a very likely spot where it can go wrong. And you can see the machine here says service discovery finished, so that's very nice. And it gets a configuration manifest. I hope you can read it better now when it's up there. And it goes on. So, and I can log onto the console. And I get a shell, and I can just walk around the machine and see AI do its work. So here I can have a look at /tmp. I can see that there's lots of stuff that it has downloaded, and I can look inside and see if I maybe have made a configuration mistake. Or maybe some file didn't get transferred properly. I can do a PS, and I can see what's happening on the machine. So you can see user bin auto install, that's what's actually running. And auto install is executing Python, which is executing PKG, which is doing an install, etc., etc. You can watch it actually do its work. You can see there's a very interesting thing called a package server, which I will tell you nothing about because I don't have the time. And you can see that there's one SMF method running. That's the startup method of the auto installer service, which does the entire installation. And you can see there's a log file, and you can see what it's doing. You can see, oh, this is, it found the label, the missing label on the disk, so it ignored the disk. This is the other disk, which it's using as the disk, as the installation target. It's setting the time zone, it's getting the stuff from there, etc., etc., etc. You can see what the thing does, which I think is very, very helpful. And for time reasons, I'll skip the other stuff. Go back to here. Yes, please.
Can you specify that it's going to use a mirror root tool?
Yes, you can, but not yet.
Yes, but no.
So, random advice, what do I mean by this? These are just points I found that I would like to give you to take home. Use Cayman and especially use AI. AI cannot do many things that Custom Jumpstart can do, basically because there's not so much scripting, and there's no scripting inside the packages. Use it. It's the future. It will be there. It will be replacing Custom Jumpstart. And if Sun goes out and does some more interesting things in the XML manifest file, gives us more stuff to actually do and change, I think it's going to be okay. It's not really there. It's not data center ready. It's not production ready. Don't run your production systems with AI provisioning. But have a look and deal with it because it's not going to go away, and it's not really so difficult. As you can see, we've spent like 40 minutes talking about this. This is basically also the time I spent setting it up. Well, I lie again a bit, but always use the newest versions. You knew this was going to come back again. That's really important. They are working very hard, and they are changing things under the hood especially so that you don't see it. But suddenly it breaks, suddenly it doesn't work. Use the newest version whenever you can. So I don't have to tell you why you have to learn Python. The previous presentation by Michael made this abundantly clear. I use Perl, but I have to learn Python myself, so this is really an advice for myself. Have a look at XML. You all know XML. This is not what I meant. Have a look at the XML file format that AI uses. Become familiar with it. The only way to actually deal with it currently is to fire up an editor and type it in. There is no generation. There is no machine that generates this for you. But you can write your scripts that generate manifests, and then you can set up individual clients with individual configurations. And understand DHCP, and don't let the AI setup do this. Don't let it do the DHCP setup, because this is a cause for errors. This is complicated. Learn about DHCP. It's not so bad. It's a couple of commands. Understand what you're doing. Define the macros yourself. You will be very happy because you will have saved yourself lots of debugging time. So they've merged this together because DHCP is a requirement for AI. Don't do it. Just let it complain that it's not configured and configure it manually. It's much, much better. And remember, it's work in progress. So we have some extras, which I will skip now because we don't have the time. And there's some links and resources. I hope you can read this. If not, doesn't matter. This Monday I checked and all the opensource.org links were gone because they've changed the website format and everything points to Hub now. So if Uncle Google gives you some strange candy, just distrust him, don't go home with him, and go to Hub opensource.org and look for yourself. And of course, I have another confession to make. The presentation is not quite there yet, and the link collection is also not there, but I'll try to put it there this weekend with the good links into the Hub opensource.org structure. And if you're very interested, you can also send me an email and nag me about it, and I will try to do it sooner. So that concludes the presentation.